All right, we are here, we are live. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this live webinar. I'm Nate McDonald. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director and Communication Director. I'm here with a few of our distinguished division directors. And the opportunity that we want to have today is to really talk about the four cornerstones that were established by our Executive Director, John Pierpont, when he became the Executive Director roughly 5 years ago. And really be able to talk about just what exactly these cornerstones mean and how they impact us at the division level. So before we get into that, I want to just introduce everyone here. We got Kevin BURT. Go ahead, Kevin. Kevin, you're with? Unemployment. We have Kathy BOUNOUS. I forget, I'm the one mic'd up, so I'm going to say Kathy BOUNOUS. She wears three titles here. So we have a division director of adjudication, our legal counsel, and our legislative affairs director. Dale OWNBY, our eligibility service division director. Sarah Brenner, our Utah State Office of Rehabilitation director, and then also Stephen LISONBEE with workforce development. So we're happy to have all of them here with us to give some insight. Let me just introduce this a little bit with, when I came to the department, the four cornerstones were introduced to me. And when I really started looking at the four cornerstones, something that really struck me about the four cornerstones is that they really identify who our target audiences are and who we're also accountable to. And so when you start talking about operational excellence, we want to be the best state managed agency. Why? Because we are accountable to the taxpayers, to the governor, to our legislature. When we talk about exceptional customer service, we're accountable to the people we serve. When we're talking community connections, we're only successful as we connect with our partners out in the community. And then last, but most important, is we're only successful if our employees are successful. And those are our target audiences, and that's why the four cornerstones have always rung true to me as something important for us to focus on with our strategic planning and everything, because really they're our target audiences. So with that, what we want to do in this presentation, in this live session, is really get some perspectives of how the four cornerstones impact at the division level. Because you hear John talk about them, you hear Casey and Greg talk about them, but this is an opportunity. How are these four cornerstones being utilized and implemented at the division level? And so we're going to dive right into it. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to throw it out to each of the directors, and we'll see what we get here. So we're going to just jump right into operational excellence. As I mentioned before, we're accountable. Our audience that we target with being operationally excellent is our taxpayers, the governor's office, and our legislature. We got the session coming up, so I'm going to throw this first question out to you, Kathy. With the session coming up, what does it mean for us as a department to be prepared and accountable when it comes to operational excellence?
Well, is this on? Okay, that's a great question. So yeah, session's coming up. It's my favorite time of year. And this is an opportunity for our agency to shine, where we get to show the legislative body that we know our business and that we are the best managed state agency. And so it's a great opportunity for us to go out and talk about the great work that our agency is doing, that our employees are doing, that we are operating in an excellent manner, and that it is due to everyone's work here within the agency. We are accountable to the governor's office. We are part of the executive branch, and so we are representatives of the of the governor. When we're on the Hill, when we're talking to customers, whatever we're doing in our capacity with our jobs, we are representing the governor, and we want to make sure that we're supporting his efforts in leading this state. We're also responsible to the legislative body. These guys control our policy, our laws, our money. They are really a check and balance for the executive branch, and so it's so important that we maintain good relationships with that body and that we show them that we're great at what we do.
Okay, great. So that's Kathy's up on the Hill. She's representing the department as a whole. Let's bring this down to the division level. What does this mean at the division level? Kevin.
Well, look, I think one of the ways we can be best prepared for the legislative session is to have excellent performance metrics. Look, a big part of the legislative session is the Appropriations Committee. And what they do is they have performance metrics to kind of evaluate whether the appropriations given to the department is well invested, whether they're meeting the outcomes. And if we're meeting those outcomes, man, everything just goes smoother because there's confidence in what we're doing. And we can actually move the discussion, instead of things that we are doing, we can move it to things that we would like to do, because there's so much confidence that we are successful in what it is we're doing. And look, on a side note, I'm going to take a tangent here and teach you for putting me on this webinar.
Thank you.
Look, if you have an idea and you think there's a way that we can do things better, don't hesitate to submit those. But what we want to do is we want to discuss those in-house first. And so a lot of times a legislative body is an opportunity to be able to discuss changes or things that we can do better. But we should have those discussions in-house. Maybe I have an idea of something that I think would be really beneficial or a way that we could do it better. But maybe I'm missing some information of why it is we're doing it the way that we're doing it. And so a great way to make changes and to prepare and constantly move forward with operational excellence is actually just submit your idea to your supervisor and your manager. Gives us a chance to kind of take a look at it, explain what it is we're doing, and you can make those changes or at least understand why it is we're doing things the way that we're doing them.
Great, I appreciate that. I mean, and you started touching base at, at the division level down to the employee level. What are some things, maybe Dale, Stephen, you guys want to throw in, what are some specific things your division is doing with operational excellence?
Yeah, I mean, in ESD, there's no shortage of work. I mean, we have work flowing in. We don't have any control over it. So we really look at ways that we can make our processes more efficient. We use technology a lot. I'll give you an example. Probably the least favorite thing in ESD is the phones. But that's our primary method of helping our customers. So we purchase a software package called Optimizer. It helps us to adequately staff the phones with the least amount of staff. One of our hierarchies, our Spanish team, went from 20 hours a week on phones to 6 hours a week. So that freed up basically 14 hours of a week to be able to work on cases and get those benefits out so that the customers don't have to keep calling in. So probably not the most popular example, but again, we go out, my ADs and I go out on the road a couple times a year. We do what we call throughput rounds. We talk to staff, we get their ideas, and oftentimes we find out about stuff that we didn't even know about, and we go back and we implement it, and it makes our jobs easier, and it gets benefits, more timely and accurate benefits to our customers who are eligible. So always just looking at our processes and trying to improve them.
Great.
Thank you, Dale. So to add on to that, I think one of the things that's really important, especially in our division, is to have a very consistent delivery model. When you gather your leadership together, you're really in sync with the quality of service, the methodology of service, then it puts you in a position where you can be consistently delivering to the metrics and the outcomes you need. And we found that time together as a leadership is really important, right? We're spread out geographically around the state, and to be able to come together and have that time, have one voice in next steps, and delivering a sense of culture on how we execute on our quality service is really important. And I think to add to that, we've really learned that the role of a supervisor is significant. And the more we invest in that role of a supervisor, the stronger our core teams are. And we had a really cool experience over this last year and a half with our supervisors where we built out a command center concept. And before we rolled things out to the staff, we brought those leaders together, allowed them to learn that process and to kind of identify things that maybe weren't already identified in the plan that was going to be rolled out, vet that together. Then they became the true champions and leaders with the staff. And I think that's really important to ensure we keep that strong foundation supported as much as we can.
One of the common things I think I've heard here is that operational excellence is from across the board, with every single employee, from supervisors, managers on up. There's an active role that we all take in it. One of the things I've always been impressed with John Pierpont, our executive director, is he's always open to feedback. He's always open to suggestions, and I think that trickles down to all of our directors, all of our supervisors, managers, and so I love what you shared, Kevin, about employees. We want to be a department that is open to hearing ideas, suggestions, thoughts, and that is something that is important, that is communicated up and talked to, and so we hope that employees feel that they can do that, and we want you to do that. So any other comments in regard to that?
You know, as you mentioned that with John and the value of that dialogue, one of the things that comes to mind, I'm looking at my peers right here, right? So we haven't really mentioned that collaboration across divisions, but one of the ways we get to tell an amazing story about our services is that we're so highly collaborative amongst our divisions. Our agency's in a position where we have, you know, a series of services that, you know, the citizens of Utah need. Because we're so coordinated across divisions, we can tell a better story of how we serve, you know, the Utah citizens. And I think that collaboration across division just can't be celebrated enough.
All right. So before we move on to exceptional customer service, want to make sure that when you guys are talking, talk really close to the mic. Keep it close.
Did I do okay?
Okay.
I was paying attention
Yes.
to the cues.
No, thank you.
You're not right now. You're not talking into the mic.
So no, that was a great dialogue about operational excellence, and it is something that it's important across all levels that is occurring. We exist as a department because of the services we provide to the people of the state of Utah. And so when we cut to the chase, it is about our customers and how we serve them. That really, at the end of the day, is the most important part of what we do and why we're here. And so let's talk about exceptional customer service as being one of the 4 cornerstones. I mean, you look at across the board our customers, from veterans to refugees to utilization of our temporary assistance programs to the disabled community, to those who are homeless, and to just anyone needing additional support when it comes to employment services. Our customer base really, in one way, shape, or another, touches our entire population. And so I want to specifically talk to you, Sarah, and get some response to you about what are some of the things that Rehabilitation Services is doing to ensure that we have exceptional customer service.
And if I can, I'll just talk about a couple of initiatives that are going on right now that I think really exemplify some of the things that we're doing in USOR. But first, thank you for having me. I know I just have to give a pre-advance excuse me. I'm probably the newer one of the group. I think I'm the newer one of the group. And I'm so excited to be back at DWS and working with rehabilitation. It's been a lot of fun. Also want to let all of our divisions know, or subdivisions as we're calling them, that I may not talk about all of you, but you're all doing exceptional work around customer service, from working with our blind and visually impaired and our deaf and hard of hearing groups. But the couple of examples I want to talk to have a little bit more to do with youth. And I think we all know and work with youth and realize how important it is to make sure that we're doing a good job with youth and providing the resources we can before they head out to the world of work and independence and have to make a life on their own. So as you know, the Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act had a lot of changes in it for a lot of us. But a couple of the things that were specific to USOR that I wanted to just briefly touch on are how we deal with some youth. So we have a program called Pre-Employment Transition Services, and I have to give a shout out to Amy Langoni, who's basically been a one-person shop on a lot of this, who has helped us develop some of these resources. And what this increased emphasis on transition age youth, which we define as between, sorry, I got to peek at my notes, 14 to 22, who are kids that are still in school in some way, need a little bit more support transitioning into life and into school, whether they're going to go to work or continue their education. WIOA really emphasized some key services that we want to provide these kids to make sure that they are going to be successful down the road. They may come back and be a customer down the road or a client, but we want to give them every chance to succeed when they're young. Some of the things that we're doing, our counselors are very engaged with the local school districts. They're reaching out. We've always had relationships with those school districts, but we're really reaching out and creating relationships, attending IEP meetings, making sure that we're providing work readiness information, and that we're telling about the world of work, giving them work experiences that they can participate in, really trying to make a difference and make sure those individuals are leaving school prepared for the workforce and for life.
Great. Now, one of the things that when you look at USOR and you look at our Workforce Development Division, I don't know of another state agency that is out there in the communities. You know, you look at our 30+ employment centers, and then how many vocational rehab offices that are out there in the community, especially out in rural Utah. We're a staple in many of the communities around the state, and all the communities around the state. And so, Stephen, you're doing a lot with connecting to our customers as well. They walk through our employment center doors. Any examples that you have?
Yeah, I won't share them all, and I got some great stories, but we've spent a lot of time putting together some specific tactics to support veterans. And that's been really fun. Over the last 4 or 5 years, we've developed an annual call to action, and we worked with other divisions and other agencies in the state and community partners to really target specific aspects of their need and find tactics to be able to move them forward. I can think of one that we just recently, put a lot of effort into, and we targeted an age range of veterans that we saw were struggling with attachment to employment significantly more than others. And so we built specific tactics for them. Another one is working with, Kevin Shop and Unemployment Insurance Division and identifying a way to reduce the duration length of veterans receiving unemployment insurance. And it's exciting to be able to drill down to specific tactics, bring teams together to figure out ways to execute those. And every single tactic that we've put on our call to action, we've achieved. And I'm excited for next year. We're going to help. We've identified veterans who are incarcerated. We want to attach them quickly to employment as they come out of incarceration. And so we're continuing to do things. And Operation Rio Grande's another one. Finding ways to do things different with partners in a collaborative way that's very targeted. I think as we learn more about the targeted populations that we're working with and what their unique needs are, and we bring partners to the table to work, we get better sustainable approaches and outcomes rather than just making a generic approach. We've learned how to become really targeted.
So I want to take this even a little bit further down and really talking about that interaction with customers. I mean, when we look at our largest division, 700+ employees that are interacting with people every day in our eligibility services centers, working with not only people with unemployment claims, but also all the employers. We touch the community and our customers so much in so many ways. So does anyone have anything they want to just talk about where really just taking it to that level of how we actually are interacting and working with our customers?
I think Sarah has one.
I do. I'm raising my hand, and I thought I'd be the last person to do that. But we do so much cool stuff, I couldn't help myself. So one of the things that is really cool to watch in our organization, and well, let me back up because I did want to mention when you were talking about that collaboration and having rehab, in with workforce services. I've had the opportunity to talk with some of my peers nationally, and those of you that were around in '97 when we became a department, that was great. You realize how lucky we are to have all the partners in one place, and it really helps us communicate, and people are always jealous when you go elsewhere. But we talk about all those relationships, and all my peers are struggling with, how do we talk with the WIOA agency, and how do we get this? And so it's really great to be part of a bigger system. But the specific example I wanted to talk about was the work we do around our benefits planning and work incentive program. And forgive me, everybody, if I didn't use the right acronym. But we are working with clients every day who are on Social Security, for example. Individuals who have, it took forever, it's hard to get on benefits. They get on benefits, they're leery of going back to work. We have a team of people, I'm thinking of Ferris specifically in our shop at the Buffmeyer building, and some others on her team who work with our VR counselors, who as a team come together and work with this one individual client to make sure that they can go to work. So we have successes like that all the time where we can help someone who is on benefits. They think their life is kind of set. Here's what I need to do. We're helping them go to school, work, and also not jeopardize their benefits, and maybe get off benefits, just kind of depending on what kind of opportunities we provide them. But we see things like this every day in, I know, all of our divisions of how committed our employees are to our customers.
Before we pass it down to that side of the room, I can think of an experience when I actually was case managing, right? So a lot of us have had experiences where we've had different positions in DWS, and I remember when I was case managing a training caseload, and a young mother came in, 3 younger children. She'd been separated. She lacked the skills to be able to attach to employment in a way that could provide for a family. So we were working on that training program, and she was actively participating in a training program and finding a lot of success. And it was fun to have those moments when we found the quality childcare, right? And then we found, the counseling office at the school system to be able to attach and build this network around this family that needed some extra support to be able to help them get where they needed to go. And I think we're about 6 months into the training plan, and the mother got just some horrible news. And within 3 weeks, she passed away from a terminal disease. And these 3 younger kids had no family, had no other support structure other than what had been built in that 6-month process where the community had come together to help build out a training plan. And because of that connection and that network built around the customer, we moved through several really big decisions for those children very quickly, such as Social Security support for the children and foster care where they could stay together, and some really cool things. And so I think for me, what I learned very early on in my career is that you never know what kind of impact you can make on a family, and make sure they're always aware of all the services our agency has to offer, and they may not be utilizing them at the moment, but there may be a time in the future. And make sure you help support a network for them in their own community so that they find a way to sustain wherever level they need to be. So,
Stephen, you bring up families, and that has been a big emphasis, not just with your division, workforce development, but across the board. Is how are we working with families and taking that 2-generation approach, and not just talking to the parent or the adult that is in front of us or on the phone line with us, but how are we looking about the generation behind them that they're supporting? And I know there's a lot of emphasis taking place with Workforce Development Division, but I know that's something that's trickling down into all the divisions as well, and really looking at how we're serving the family. And Dale, I know recently ESD has put together something where you're having that approach of really looking at the family as well.
Sure, it's kind of a pilot right now. I mean, historically, our primary support to family was to get their benefits determined and get them issued pretty quickly so that they could focus on other things. But knowing that families that are kind of in an intergenerational poverty situation, a vast majority of them are not being case managed, so they don't have the kind of that intensive face-to-face counseling. ESD, we wanted to do something because we're talking to these customers on the phone every day. So we looked at the cohort of families that we know have experienced intergenerational poverty. We chose the families with teenage youth, hoping that maybe we could give them some additional supports to help the youth stay in school or obtain employment, and hopefully break the cycle. In even one instance would be great. So we have a pilot team Down in Cedar City, they have those cases. We take extra time when they call in. We ask them about their kids, whether they're in school, offer them, resources in the community. We make referrals to the Office of Rehabilitation if that's appropriate. We hook them up with counselors in WDD to look at maybe some additional skill training or services for youth. And then every quarter we look on the back end to see if our efforts are making a difference. We're about 6 months into the pilot, so still pretty new, but it's shown some promise so far.
When we had our 20-year celebration anniversary and we really looked at the history of this department, how it was created, one of the things that really stood out was the vision of Olene Walker, and we named our building after her because of this vision that she had, and she just saw how we could the state of Utah could serve the people of Utah so much better by bringing all these divisions and programs together under the Department of Workforce Services. And I think there's some great examples of this taking place right now of how we're serving our customers with all of our divisions. And when you start looking at, when you add in child care, and you add in refugee services, and you add in all these players from veterans to refugees to now what we're doing with homelessness, and we're seeing how this unified department with all these programs is really making a difference at the customer level, and it's neat to see.
And I just have we talked a lot about like the hands-on approach, but a significant percentage of our department is actually eligibility determination, whether that be DDS, whether that be food stamps or unemployment insurance. Look, I don't think customers can progress unless they're financially stable, or they have food stamps, or they have quality child care. And so a quick, accurate eligibility determination, whatever program it is essential, because what that does is it stabilizes them so they don't have to think about how I'm going to feed my family or how I'm going to pay the rent. And they can focus on the other things that actually advance them and re-engage them into the workforce. And so sometimes we get lost in talking about all these hands-on things that we do, and we've moved on to technology where we do a lot of phones or interaction with chat. But man, that's a big service. If I don't know where I'm at financially, I'm not going to be very good in school. And so any advancement or anything we're trying to do to help them move their career path has to first come with some security and just the basic needs.
Great. Good comment there. We're going to end on that. We're going to move to community connection because one of the greatest ways we have to serve across the board many larger customer bases is through a number of our partners that are out there. And we have some great examples of that taking place. This year has been a big year with partnerships. When you look at some of the governor's initiatives with the 25,000 jobs in rural Utah, we stepped up and we were a big partner in working with not only the governor's office of economic development, but also inside the communities. We were a staple inside those communities. And Stephen, your team was phenomenal in being out there in the community and not just supporting the governor's office, but supporting those communities. Tell us more of those opportunities that you're seeing being out there in the community and connecting with partners.
Well, so I'll share one thought first. It's interesting, we tend to be, along with USOR, a little bit more of that public-facing group, but behind the scenes, we have to collaborate across divisions so much to help make that community really, chime the way it does. And so I just think about how much we work with Kevin's shop and connected with employers that all feed in and leverage that connection to others. So I sometimes wonder if our local teams recognize how much coordination really happens across divisions, and I really appreciate that. But as far as that connection to the local level within the county and the city and community, it's a full-time game. It is constantly hopping. You have local leaders who take initiatives that they want to pursue. They're coming to our workforce research analysis team, and sometimes they're directly connecting, sometimes they're coming through our team to try to acquire the data they need to make intelligent decisions. And then they often bring us in as partners, to be able to help strategize ways to move forward with the plan that they want to execute. And I think to some degree we sometimes play that consultant, right? Here's the information, here's the services already available, how are you utilizing them to be impactful in your community so you can be the leader in your community you need. And I think our 25K Job Tour event helped a lot of the communities recognize the resources that would be available to them. And I know the counties are currently meeting with the governor and sharing some of their plans and where they're going with their economic development plans. And workforce is a big topic in that. And whether it's finding the hidden talent in populations that are still searching for employment and not maybe attached the way that they want to be, or working with the kind of that rising generation of youth and making sure they're prepared for the right occupations that Utah is pursuing. So it's exciting. And I think beyond that, you see agencies working together, right? So we've kind of been talking about industry, but the agencies are coming together in a way that probably haven't before through the county IGP plans, some of the coordinated case management efforts, and so that's exciting to see on multiple fronts a more localized effort to coordinate.
Yeah, Sarah.
Oh, I just wanted to add, I was so glad you mentioned that, Kevin, because I've been sitting here thinking I didn't mention our disability determination services and the great work that they do, but it made me think about all the medical providers that we use and that we really probably cross over in a lot of different ways, but how important some of our partners in the community, like the independent living centers and in rehabilitation specifically, we really rely heavily on our community partners and those relationships that our staff and employees are developing with all of those partners. I mean, that's what makes us successful is when they see that we're responsive, that we're passionate about what we're doing. It just really helps us have those relationships in the community.
Well, and then when you look at, I mean, what is there another government identity that has a touch point outside of the IRS with every single employer, and we have some great resources within our department across the board that we capitalize and we utilize each other. When I look at the data aspect, workforce research and analysis, the opportunities that allows us to connect with many of our community partners just because of the data that we provide is huge. And working with employers, anything you want to add to that on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people know this. I think that a lot of people are aware in unemployment insurance that we determine claimant eligibility for people who lose employment. But one of the things unemployment is also responsible for is the calculation and the collection of unemployment insurance tax. So we work with every employer that is required to pay a tax. It's put into a trust fund, and then that trust fund is used to pay the claimant eligibility. We just did a communication, actually, about the change that we've had in how much taxes we're collecting. In 2017, we collected about $170 million less in taxes than we did in 2013. And by doing that, what we're doing is we're leaving money in the economy, leaving in the money with the employers, so the employers can reinvest in their existing employees and pay them more, raising them out of possible poverty levels, or expand their business. And then that connects WDD. WDD can connect job seekers to these new jobs. And actually, we do that, and they're required to work with us, and it's optional to work with WDD. Now, one of the things we talked about is, well, man, if they're working with us, how can we, when they're paying their taxes, how can we immediately encourage them to now post their jobs with WDD? And that's kind of the interaction that we're talking about. If all the employers are coming to unemployment insurance, why can't we just kind of say, hey, do you know about this service that's provided over here? And that was a collaboration that we just did, and now when they go in and pay their taxes, it immediately offers them, hey, do you want to post a job with us as well?
Yeah. Now, but a big part of this is you have an employer advisory council. So how important is it for you to connect to and listen to this council of employers that you meet with regularly?
Oh yeah, we do meet regularly, and they're an advisory group. And so what they do is we kind of talk to them about, hey, changes that we want to do. In the end, it is an advisory committee, and we can make decisions that we determined to be the best, but the advisory committee just helps the employee. It gets an employer perspective. So we say, hey, we want to do this. The employers come and say, well, if you do that, here's the potential consequence of that. And so that really helps us. And then legislatively, they can also help us too. If a proposal is being introduced that maybe isn't as well thought out or could have unintended consequences, we can share that with the advisory committee, and then the advisory committee can kind of lobby for us and help legislators from an employer's perspective kind of say, well, did you understand this? We agree with DWS in this case. This will impact us in this way.
And I don't know if everyone realized that, but pretty much almost every single one of our divisions that is public facing has some type of advisory council or board that they are working with from, I know USOR has them with voc rehabilitation. Yes. We have our state workforce development board. Dale, you meet regularly with the advocates. And I mean, Kathy, how important is this from that bigger picture of how we work with partners in impacting us not only at the department level, but also statewide?
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, the issues that I'm addressing during any legislative session run the gamut from how much money we're getting and where the money's going, how much money's getting taken away, which means what do we have to shut down type of issues, from potential changes to all of our code and law that governs the way that we run our business. And so the greater impact, positive impact we have with those outside of our agency, any kind of individual. It doesn't have to be someone in a power position, but just the interactions that we have as an agency with those outside of the agency, if it can be positive. And then they can see the agency in a positive light. And then when they have conversations about DWS and John Pierpont and the work that we do, they're sharing it in a positive light. And boy, that makes my job a lot easier on the Hill, I will tell you that. Because when I'm looking at different programs being cut their funding, every year there's a cut list, a long cut list for our funding, and I have to go fight it. And when these different legislators have had touch points, conversations in their hometowns with people who actually have natural touch points with us in those programs, it's so much easier when they've had a positive experience or they've heard positive things for me to then defend that money or defend that program, defend that law, and keep DWS operating as the best state-managed agency. So it has a huge impact. Yeah. And it can have a huge impact on the flip side. If people have a negative experience, that creates a lot of work for me during the legislative session. So if you like me at all, please, positive impacts.
Well, in all reality, it's if we, our employees, it's not, if I heard kind of the underlying message there, is that we all are representing the department. In our actions and how we represent the department with our customers, with community partners, it does trickle up and has a great impact in the bigger picture of things. And so it's something that we all should take great pride in representing and working for this department, and we have opportunities to impact that with our relationships. All right, speaking of our employees, we're going to end this on the most important cornerstone of them all, and that is our employees. It really is, and that's something I think is really neat, that sometimes organizations stop at just focusing on who we're accountable to and the big bosses. But I love that we don't stop and we say employees are critical, because we can't do any of this if we don't have a successful employee base. I being office near you, Dale, I know that ESD takes this very seriously and cares a lot. I think we all do, but I've heard some great things that ESD does specifically. Sometimes they're so great they make it into the paper even. So Dale, tell us a little bit about things that you do and that your division does to really focus on the employee.
Sure. It never goes unnoticed by me ever that any success of ESD is due to the staff that are on the front line, that are helping customers, that are supporting our staff. I'm often quoted with a couple of my Dale quotes, good or bad, but I'm going to quote one of my ADs here, Murris, who, when we meet with new employees, we make them two promises. You'll never fail because we failed to support you. Meaning that you're an investment in ESD, and we're going to invest in you to make you successful. You're going to invest in us to rely on us to support you, and we're gonna throw every resource we can at you to make you be successful. The second one is if we ever have a problem with you, if you're not doing what we want you to do, or if you're struggling with performance and we have to take action or talk to you, it'll never come as a surprise. So we want to make sure that we're supporting our staff. We encourage mandate monthly one-on-one meetings with the staff to not only go over where they're at with their performance, but to talk about interests and professional and personal development, things that they're interested in. We have a very large division, so there's often a lot of opportunity for movement or promotion, and so we'd like to help our staff prepare if that's something they're interested in. And you mentioned that we made it in the paper. We have kind of a heavy job sometimes. I mean, we're helping people in crises, and so there are some things that we like to do to have fun. Halloween's a big deal in ESD, as many of the Tribune readers read about.
And I only bring that up because actually the times that I've been visited some of the eligibility center, I've noticed that there's a culture of support. There's a culture of that you've established there, that where the employee matters.
Right, and like I said, we like to have fun. We have activities throughout the year, picnics. Some of our offices have wellness councils, and we like to support that. We have a great infrastructure team with program and training, and our performance review team, so that they're giving feedback to the staff and helping them through difficult policies. And so, our ESD staff's very important to me.
All right. That's great. Kevin, what about you? Unemployment insurance.
Well, and I just echo what Dale says about Halloween. We have our own shindig, too.
Great.
But I think, look, honest feedback, and you talked about in the one-on-ones. I think for the most part, the majority of people do want to know how they're doing. Mm-hmm. They want to know what people think about them. They want to know what's their reputation. And so I think that that's really critical. They should never be surprised by that. So I think open communication matters. Now, as advice I'd give, if you want that open communication, you have to also be receptive to feedback, to critical feedback. If in the end you get angry when someone gives you honest feedback, or you don't listen to that feedback, that person, you're discouraging that person from giving you honest feedback. I think some of the best people in your life are the people that will honestly tell you that you're being stupid. And so you want to encourage them, and you can discourage them, but a person that can say, "Kyle, this is just not, you're not thinking straight, or this is not right," so that honest feedback matters. And the only other thing I'd add is I think a lot of frustration can come from not knowing the why. So I believe a lot in open communication about, here's the reason why we're doing these things, or here's the reason why we stopped doing these things. I just believe that if I can't own the message of why we're doing things, when I communicate it to the managers and supervisors, how in the world can I expect them to own the message of why we're doing things down to the staff level? Understanding the why just can relieve a lot of frustration. And in the end, if you're frustrated or you don't understand, ask the question. Sometimes we're not addressing the question because we don't know it exists. And so just ask the question, and at least, and I think I can speak for all the division directors too, we're always open to explain why. And it may not be the answer that the person's looking for, but it does help to know the logic behind it.
Great. Now, we've gone longer than we thought, but I just want to wrap this up. Keeping with this employee theme, if anyone else has a comment or advice that you would love to share with our employees, not just about employee success, but in general, it could tie in with any of the cornerstones. And if just hand that mic down. You talked enough, Kevin.
I don't have a
nugget.
nugget. I don't have any advice.
Any other thoughts you guys would want to wrap up with? You want to pass it down. I know Steven's got something he wants to say.
I think
I'm
he's
gonna-
trying to say get it down here, but go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say one little thing, and that in terms of advice, and that would be to talk to us. I mean, I know sometimes we're seen as just by our title, it's a little unapproachable, and a little scary, or we might be in a different office. And I think all of us want to be. I think we're all pretty approachable and want to solve problems and hear about things, because we can't do things if we don't know about it. So I guess just an encouragement of people to reach out and let us know if there's things we can be doing better.
Totally concur with what Sarah shared. And one of the most exciting things for me are brown bag sessions with the staff. I look forward to them. It's just me with them, and they open up and share what excites them for the job, what motivates them for the job, and that inspires me, and they feed off each other. And then they share ideas of ways where we could improve, and they're comfortable brainstorming, and not every idea is going to be executed, but it keeps the wheel going of innovation, and I really appreciate that. And I think for me, to kind of cap out employee success, I look at my own career, and I began as an eligibility worker, and really put my heart and soul into it. And I think one of the things I learned very early on is be good at your current job. If you're good at your current job, your team members will look to you as a natural leader on the team. Your supervisor will look to you as somebody that can help move innovation and culture and updates forward, and you become more heavily relied on. And you put yourself in a position for opportunities, whatever they are. And you may not choose to take them, but you give yourself the window of opportunity. And as I also would just offer that this agency has more opportunities probably than any other business or agency in the state. And your opportunity geographically, your opportunity with different positions across multiple divisions is very wide. And I know from my own career, I've taken those opportunities. I've relocated my family. I've taken opportunities in a very small office, in a large office, different divisions, and just held constant to be good at what you're at right now, work hard, and be committed. And I think DWS is a very loyal agency to their staff. I think that there's a significant amount of investment across the board. Professional development opportunities, career exploration opportunities, and then I think even financially. I think that our staff have been very well looked over. And I appreciate that with our agency. It's good to be here, and I think our employees make or break us, so all that we can do to invest in them is good.
No, thank you. And I want to just wrap this up. Obviously we have 5 division directors here. We have more divisions that do amazing things. I mean, from housing and community development to workforce research and analysis. We have our supportive state agency or divisions. We don't function without administrative services, keeping us all in line, from finances to security. And then where we really specialize in working with some of our specialty populations with refugees and veterans and employer initiatives. And we do so much. I believe fully that this conversation applies to all of our divisions, to all of our employees across the board. And so we appreciate each one of you taking the time to share your thoughts, to have this message go out about our 4 cornerstones that have been established by John, our executive director. We have these questions outlined, but we did get some questions submitted to us, and I'm just going to end with one because we're out of time. But this one is for you, Dale. One of our employees wrote in, which weighs more, the Pyramid of Giza or the Chrysler Building?
This came from Matthew Larson, didn't it?
I don't know. It was anonymous.
I am going to say the pyramids.
You are correct.
Thank you.
6.5 million tons.
Awesome.
So
Just remember, there's no crying in eligibility.
there we go. No, thank you all. We appreciate everyone joining us. You can view this. If this can be viewed again, it'll be on the intranet. And we hope if employees miss this, they can view it later at their own leisure time when they're not enjoying the rigors of our office. But thank you, everyone.